This presentation is about early entrance to kindergarten. This screencast is designed to replace a meeting we typically have in early May but are not able to this year. My name is Jessie Zink. I am the district's gifted coordinator, and I, along with Dottie Woodard, our pre-K3 curriculum specialist, and Allie Hunley, our school psychologist at the KELC, are the ones that are part of the early entrance to kindergarten team. To give you a little bit of information about early entrance to kindergarten, it is state law that any student who turns 5 after our district's kindergarten entrance date, which is August 1st, but during the school year at some point, can apply for early entrance to kindergarten. And it is highly recommended that the district uses their academic acceleration policy, so the same policy that we use if a student in an older grade were thinking about skipping a grade. Just a little bit about research on early entrance to kindergarten. What we know about successful candidates who enter early is that they are first carefully selected. So that is why we use a pretty rigorous tool. They should be as socially well adjusted as older classmates and should be actually better behaved and better at academics than older classmates. And that research does show that you should be using a tool like the Iowa Acceleration Scale, which is what we use, in order to make those decisions. Good candidates' abilities include advanced vocabulary and early reading, strong math skills, a long attention span, so the ability to pay attention longer than the typical kindergarten student, excellent memory, and excellent problem solving and connections, and ability to make connections. As I mentioned, we do use the Iowa Acceleration Scale. So the Iowa Acceleration Scale is a series of testing that we implement in order. So the first is tests cognitive ability, or IQ. The second tests academic ability, in this case reading and math. And then there are also questions that we, as a team, along with parents, complete about social emotional maturity and motor development, both fine motor development like handwriting and gross motor development like walking, skipping, standing, running. The Iowa Acceleration Scale is, as I said, it's implemented in phases. So the first phase is cognitive ability, or IQ, and they do consider cognitive ability to be a critical item. So if a student does not have an IQ of 115 or above, we do not move on and we do not allow a student to enter kindergarten early. As a side note, there is another critical item related to a student's siblings. So if a student had a sibling who was also entering kindergarten through the normal way of entering kindergarten, we would not consider early entrance. To give you a little bit of an idea for reading and math scores, when we test that, we measure it using percentiles. So a percentile you can think of as if you line up 100 people, where do you fall in line? And we would expect a student's reading and math ability to be above the 90th percentile. We do use the WIPSI cognitive ability or IQ test to test students for their IQ. The 5 components of that testing are listed to the side. I am not a school psychologist, so I don't want to speak to what each of those entail, but if you do have questions about that, our contact information is listed at the end of this presentation. To give you an idea, though, of what a 115 IQ means, if you notice on the bell curve, anywhere between a 115 and a 145 is considered the top 16% of the population and considered a high performer, and that is where we would expect students to fall. When we measure academic ability, I do that testing, and we are looking for reading and math. When we are measuring reading, the expectation is that students would be able to read words and sentences and comprehend those sentences on their own. And for math, we would expect that students can do basic addition problems, like 2 + 2 = 4, and verbally solve word problems on their own. And we always get questions often about why we would expect students to have these skills when not all students who are entering kindergarten through the normal route have those skills. And it really goes back to that research that I shared with you at the beginning of this presentation about what we know students need if they are going to continue through school at a younger developmental age than their peers. When we are evaluating social and emotional behavior and also motor development, the things we are looking for, specifically behavior, social participation, so how shy are you, how outgoing are you, motivation, self-concept, so what do you believe about yourself as a learner, the activities you're involved in, your attitude towards learning, and we actually do evaluate students based on their size, physical size, and their, as I said before, fine and gross motor coordination. So to give you a little bit of an an idea of the time frame, now that you kind of know about the process, this year we are moving all kindergarten registration to June 1st and 2nd. So we decided to simply use those same dates for early entrance evaluation. So June 1st is when we would schedule an appointment for that cognitive testing and an evaluation called Draw a Person. And as I said before, a student would have to have a 115 or higher on that cognitive testing to move on. If they do, we will schedule an academic testing on June 4th, and at that time we would also work with parents to complete the rest of that Iowa Acceleration Scale. Then finally on June 5th, we would have our parent meeting and let you know what our decision was. And July 30th is the deadline to submit a written appeal if you do not agree with that decision. We know this format's a little different, and typically when we have this meeting, we have lots of parent questions, so we absolutely are here to answer your questions. I've listed Dottie Woodard, our pre-K3 curriculum specialist, and my contact information there. You may prefer a phone call, and that's totally fine, but if you could just reach out to us via email, and then we can set that phone call up if that's how you prefer to ask questions. So I hope your family is staying safe and well and sane, and I'm happy to hear from you.